This time on the shred school, we're going to get that wax back out. We're going to wax up that curb a little more, and we're going to do a 50-50 grind. Welcome back to the Shred School, a training course where I'm teaching you the first 12 tricks I think you should do on your skateboard. And we are finally at the last one, the 50-50 grind. And the reason why I put this last is because I wanted you to have a little bit of time to work on that varial kickflip for one, and I wanted to space out the nose slide and the 50-50 a bit, because if you had some trouble with that, you at least have a little bit of time to get comfortable before moving on to the 50-50. So what do you need to do a 50-50? The only thing you really need to be good at is a rolling ollie. That's about it. Anything else that you can do that makes you more comfortable, if you've ever dropped off a curb or anything like that, that could be helpful. But the only actual technique thing that you need to know is a 50-50. The nose slide, I believe, is easier, and so it's helpful to learn that first so that you're comfortable on a curb. But aside from that, just the ollie should get you there. To get into the 50-50 grind, I'm going to show you two different ways to practice and then show you how to put them together. So what we're doing here is we are going to roll up to a curb or a box. We're gonna ollie, we're gonna grind with both trucks, and we're gonna kick turn and drop off of the side. That is how we are gonna do this one. And the way I want you to start is just by putting your board down next to the curb and trying to ollie up onto it. It can be a little bit difficult. It's going to be a little bit harder than it will be for the actual grind. I'll explain why in a second. But I still think it'll be a way to build up some confidence, to feel a bit more comfortable, because the first time you ollie onto a curb at speed can be intimidating. And you don't, if you panic and you kick the board away, that could end up bad. So we want to build up some confidence. We want to show you some ways to get comfortable with it before you end up doing it. So set your board next to the curb and set your feet up a more of a stable type of way. You don't want to have your foot too far back. Maybe you can pop a bit more if your foot's further back. You only need to ollie curb height. All right. So ideally, your foot is close to the nose. That's going to be helpful when you get that back truck back on, to have your foot closer to the nose. All right. So to ollie onto a curb while you are next to it stationary is kind of a two-part move. So when you pop the nose, you're going to kind of pivot slightly. You kind of pop the nose up onto it. Now this part is pretty easy. If you just popped it as you turn slightly, you could land like that. You could probably do that all day. That one is not super difficult. The hard part is to get that back truck on. So the way that works, again, it's like a two-part thing. So you pop, and as you pop, your front foot starts to shift this way, and once you get up in the air, that's when you pull your back foot out. So you pop as your front foot comes out, then you move your back foot. It's kind of like taking two steps in the air. It's not as hard as all that, but that is kind of how it works. If you try to pop the whole board forward at the same time, it doesn't work. If you try to scoop your back foot out, you're just going to hit the curb. So you have to pop, get that front truck over, and then the back one over. So try that a couple times, see if you can get on. Now, like I said, it is a little bit harder to do this stationary. So if your back truck is barely on, it's more like this, that's actually okay too. All right, so let's get up onto the curb like that. The second part that I want you to practice is the actual grind. So put your board on the curb like this, step back, try to take a couple steps, get some speed going, and jump up onto it and see if you can get into that grind and if that feels good. And now it's gonna depend. It's like there's not technique. You just jump on it and make sure your weight's kind of back. When you land on it with some force, it should get the grind going. Now, of course, it's going to depend. Is the curb waxed up? Are you on coping? It's going to depend how well it grinds, of course, but hopefully you can get that going and feel that grind out. You know how to ollie into it, you know how to actually do the grind, and you can learn how to actually drop in and land it or pop off. It's not really a drop in, but you could pop off of the curb from this. So you can jump on the board, get that grind going, and the way you land is just by doing a bit of a kick turn, kind of like this. As if you turn enough, your back truck will slip off and then you can land. The only thing you really need to keep an eye out on is if your weight is too far on this edge toward the heel, you can start to pivot and the board will flip over. And that's not great. On a curb, it's less likely to flip all the way over. That's one of the good things about trying to learn grinds on smaller things. But to counteract that, you want to have your weight more on the toe side. So as you start to pivot, the board will stay more flat, get toward the edge, and it'll slip off. All right, so you can ollie onto the curb, you can grind, and you can drop off, and now all we have to do is put them back together. The good news is ollieing into a 50-50 is a little easier because you don't roll completely parallel. If you approach it at an angle, your back truck is going to clear some just based on your speed. You know, you're just going to carry through that the ollie and you'll get up. With no technique, and if you're going with, if you had speed, you'd pop up and you can land like this. You wouldn't land straight. You have to kind of correct for that in the air, but the good news is part of the effort of getting up onto the curb is done. But you still do need to have that technique. You still need to pop up and then push forward with the back foot to get all the way on it. It is also possible to land with the front foot first. You can land kind of like this and then nose pivot the truck down. If something is pretty high, that's a strategy that I'll use to get comfortable on it, to pop up, land with that front truck, and then bring the back truck down. It's not the best looking style, so you don't stick with that too long, but that can get you going. So pop up, you land in the grind, you already know how to do the grind, you already know how to land, and you got the trick. When you're learning the 50-50, you might have trouble with the lock-in, might have trouble with the grind, and you might have trouble with the landing. So let's walk through all of those. The ideal position to grind is with your board as far on top as possible. So about like this. So about like that. You don't want to be grinding on the center of the truck. You want to be up against it as much as possible. And that's the most flat, the most stable. You can stay like that all day. And to help with that, you might want to work on your angle of approach and your speed. If you go at a sharper, approach kind of like this, it's easier to get up on it. You're gonna have to spin, but thankfully you do know how to do a front side spin. So you pop up, you spin, and you can land on it like that. And that'll work. It's just that if you go at a really sharp angle, you lose some speed. So, if you adjust your speed and your angle, you can get to a point where that lock-in should be able to happen. To me, it's more about that back foot and trying to push that back truck up onto it that causes the most problems. So if you can focus on that and get comfortable with that, you'll be in good shape. As far as the grind, like with this curb I was skating, it's rough, which is kind of bad, but it also was not waxed that far. It was only waxed a bit, so I could grind a little bit, then I'm kind of on drier stuff that hasn't been skated as much. And if you're trying to skate a new curb that has no paint, just like a dry curb, it can take a while. You can put on a whole candle and it still is not going to grind that well. So to help with that, this is a technique I've used even just to wax up a curb. The same thing we did to practice the grind, to set your board on there, run and jump on it, and that can kind of help force it through. I think there's something about just grinding it over and over that kind of like smooths it out to a degree that will make it a bit smoother to grind. And of course, more wax, and more wax. That's the other way to get a better grind. There is a sneaky third tip for this one, where you can put weight on your toes so that the trucks are not grinding as much. That is an option. If that ever happens to me, it's not really on purpose. I wouldn't use that as a strategy, but if you got one grind that went really, really far and the rest didn't, that could have been what happened. So I'm just gonna throw that out there so you have that information. Last thing you might have problems with is the landing. So if you're gonna land off the side, which is the way that I was teaching it, it takes some confidence. You can't just if you're kind of unsure on the board, you want to tip over and you're gonna jump off. If it goes wrong, you're gonna jump off and then it starts to tip right here. You have to have confidence. You just have to do it. To land most grinds is kind of like that, because you're not perfectly centered and balanced and all that, but you just have to like hop off and pull the board. You can't really think too much about it. But if you have a ton of trouble with that, it doesn't work, you might be able to grind off the end. That was not an option on my curb because it's like 100 feet long. But if you grind to the end, all that you have to do to land, you don't have to kick, turn off the side. You just lift up that front truck, grind to the end, it drops off, and then you can, lean back and land it. So that way should be a little bit easier. The reason why I didn't suggest that at first though is because you need more speed. You have to comfortably grind all the way off the end. If you pop off the side, you can grind to a dead stop and still do it. So I still think that's a little bit easier to learn, but those are your options at least. To advance with your 50/50s, it's a great thing to do to grind things that are a bit higher and a bit higher. So for me, the major difference here is my front foot will come back a little bit. Like a curb, I'll have it about here. On a ledge that's a bit higher, it'll be about there. It's not a big difference, but it does help to get a little bit more pop when you're trying to get onto a higher ledge. The other difference is the back truck. So with a curb, you pop, and pretty much right away when you get off the ground, that back truck is gonna come out ahead to land on the coping. When it's a bit higher, you have to pop, and you wait a little bit more time to try to clear it, because you can't just pop the back truck and slam against the side. You still have to pop up and clear it. So you could use a bit more speed and pop a little bit, like not so close to it, and that could help. Or you could try the technique I was talking about where you land with that front truck first and pull the back one on. But that is the way to get a bit more height from it. And this trick, it's just an ollie with a little bit of technique to it. So you can grind on anything you can ollie as high as, and that is a cool thing about this trick. And once you are comfortable with it, you can take it in a million different ways. You can do a back shove in, so pop shove into a 50/50. You can do a 50/50 front shove, a 50/50 kick flip. These are probably not going to be in your range quite yet, but pretty soon you will be able to start making combos with these tricks. My tip of the week is to not be afraid of switch stance. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's no trick tips for switch tricks, because it's the same technique. It's just that you have to teach yourself how to do the trick you already know how to do the opposite way. And people learn switch at different times. Some people could learn, kick flip, heel flip, and then immediately start catching up with switch. They might try to learn, like almost at the same time. That's possible, not very common, that is possible. Or you could never do switch at all, or anything in between. You could learn how to switch ollie when you've been skating for 10 years. But I would suggest not being afraid of switch and to actually try a few tricks, because for most people, there are a few tricks that are easier switch. It's not always the same, but for a lot of people, front side and heel flip stuff tends to be a little bit easier. There's a lot of confusion as to why. I've discussed it a lot in different stuff on this channel. But yeah, stuff that you scoop front side, things with a heel flip, even hard flips for some people are a lot easier switch than normal. So you won't find out what stuff will be easier for you unless you learn some switch. This trick in of itself does not have homework, but the course does. In each video, I have had an advancement section where I've talked about how to take the trick a little bit further, how to do it a bit higher, how to add a little bit of a twist on it, how to do a different version of the trick. And after you've learned all of these tricks and you're comfortable with them, I'd like you to go back and try to advance them all. Try to do them a bit better, watch those and see how you can take the trick a little bit further. I think that is a great thing to do to help really make these tricks solid, give you a really firm foundation to build the rest of your skateboarding on. And aside from that, when you have gotten your 50/50 grind, make sure you put it on Instagram with the hashtag ShredSchool101. I'm going to pick a winner to give this prize pack to very soon, and I'm very excited to finally get the chance to do that. And again, if you need any extra help with this, there is a blog version of this trick tip at radratvideo.com. As for next week, there is no next week. There will not be another trick next week because this is the end of the course. I've taught you everything I believe that you should know at this point, and I just want you to go out and enjoy these tricks. Try to take them a bit further, practice the ones you like, try to advance them and come up with new ways to do them. And I just want to thank you for all the time that you have spent with me here with these tricks, and I really hope you have gotten something from all of these. What's going to happen next week is I am going to pick out a winner. Actually, it'll be 2 weeks. I'm going to wait 2 weeks to make sure I have enough time. You can go back and you can submit stuff for tricks you haven't done yet. The winner, I would like to see a trick from each week, for each one clip from each trick. And I'm going to pick the one who wins. I'm going to post the winner on Instagram. Follow me at RadRatVideo, and I will announce who won. I will contact you, and we will get all this stuff out to you. So that is it for this whole course. Very much appreciate you being here for all of this, and I'm just happy to get more people on their skateboards.